Hey guys, Robert here, and today I'm going to be doing my YA author presentation on Brandon Sanderson. So, who is Brandon Sanderson? Well, he's a fantasy and sci-fi author, probably most well known for his Cosmere series, which is an expansive and interconnected solar system consisting of various planets with different magic systems that are all connected. The Cosmere is in general geared towards adults, but he also has a deep collection of books for teens and children. Brandon Sanderson was born in Nebraska in 1975, and he was always a big reader. He is largely influenced by writers like Robert Jordan, Anne McCaffrey, and Orson Scott Card. Initially, he was a biochem major, which is likely a contributing factor to his rich and deep magic systems and world-building skills. He's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served a mission in South Korea, which has also had an effect on his writing, as many of his fictional nations share similarities to Korean culture, especially books like The Emperor's Soul. His writing style is often described as blue-collar prose. Sanderson's works are often intensely character-based with unique and deeply explored magic systems and worlds that are thematic and enhance the character development of his beloved protagonists. This is also probably why a lot of his books are geared towards a younger audience, and why some of his other books that weren't necessarily intended for younger audiences can be read as YA fiction. Many of his stories are quite funny, and this is especially true in his YA fiction. He served as editor-in-chief for The Leading Edge, which is BYU's science fiction and fantasy magazine, and he's taught creative writing at BYU's program every year despite his enormous success. Brandon Sanderson was handpicked by fantasy giant Robert Jordan's estates to finish The Wheel of Time, which is one of the most influential and sprawling series of the genre. Among his other accomplishments are the Hugo Award in 2013 for The Emperor's Soul, and has been a New York Times bestseller 15 times and holds the record on Kickstarter for the most funded campaign in history. Though his work in adult fantasy and science fiction is historic and monumental, Sanderson has always saved room to create for younger audiences. His first definitive foray into books for younger audiences was Alcatraz vs. the Evil Librarians, which is a middle grade series that came out in 2007. The series follows a boy named Alcatraz who lives in the normal world. He's clumsy and always breaks things, until one day he discovers that he is the heir to a house that exists to oppose the ultimate evil, librarians. He and his family are gifted with unusual powers that range from the ability to get lost or to break things, but are able to harness those powers to defend the people they love. This series explores what it means to grow up and take the quote-unquote negative traits you might think you have and learn to love and appreciate those things about yourself. It also takes a look at the biases we might have and how we can learn to accept and love people even when they might not deserve it. It's written in a very tongue-in-cheek style, the humor is age-appropriate, but even as an adult I found them charming and chuckle-worthy. The narrative itself has no regard for the fourth wall, and our main character often addresses us directly. This structure serves the silly tone well, and Sanderson is fully committed to the bit through the entire series, even going as far as to make the last book written by an entirely new character. The series wrapped up in 2022, but that was not the end of his YA endeavors. Sanderson would go years without publishing a non-Alcatraz YA book, but came back strong with a fan favorite, The Rhythmatist. The Rhythmatist follows a boy named Joel on an alternate history Earth. He desperately wants to become a rhythmatist, which is a group of people who are able to make chalk drawings come to life, but he wasn't born with that ability. When students begin to turn up dead at the school he attends, Joel finds himself in the middle of a murder mystery that only he and his friend Melody can solve. This novel begins to solidify a trend in Sanderson's YA novels, feelings of inadequacy and being otherized by the people around them. Though a sequel is planned for The Rhythmatist, Sanderson has been very clear that it is on the back burner for a while, despite it being what many people believe to be some of his best work outside of the Cosmere. Released in the same year, the Reckoner series began with its first book, Steelheart. As a sort of response to the hype around the superhero genre that was gaining traction in cinema, The Reckoners depicts a world where a certain number of the population was gifted superpowers. The catch? every single superpowered human, known as epics, turns out to be evil. In a world where no one is able to fight back, a group known as the Reckoners steps up and takes the fight to the epics. Following a charming protagonist named David, whose goal is to take revenge on the near-invincible epic named Steelheart for killing his father, the Reckoners series explores the idea that power corrupts, so absolute power must corrupt absolutely, while also continuing Sanderson's themes of self-growth and discovery in his YA novels. The Reckoner series wrapped up in 2016 with 3 main books and several short stories. Sanderson's final definitive YA series began in 2018 with Skyward, a series following the remnants of humanity on a distant planet far from Earth. Spensa is a 17-year-old girl, and her only dream is to become a fighter pilot like her father. However, these dreams are far-flung at best after her father was shot down by his own squad mates when he seemingly betrayed them mid-mission. The novel follows her uphill battle to become accepted by her peers in the top brass of the military. Much like the entries before, this series is about finding out who you are and leaving the past behind to carve out a better future. The series wrapped up in late 2023 and has a sprawling 4 novels and 4 novellas that take place between each mainline entry. Though many of Sanderson's works are explicitly designed for YAs, there is some debate about a few of his other novels as well. Though I don't personally view these novels as being particularly geared towards young adults, I feel it's important to quickly mention them while we're on the topic. The first is the Mistborn trilogy, one of Sanderson's masterpieces. This is likely the most popularly debated series on the topic of age demographics because of the youth of our main character and the coming-of-age plot in the first novel, and the use of some popular YA tropes. I personally feel like the first book has a decent argument to the title of YA fiction, but the rest of the series progresses into more mature topics in my opinion. The standalone novel Warbreaker has a similar argument, though I find the overall themes to be much more adult. The Wheel of Time series, though not his series, he did write the final 3 books, and the series as a whole is debatably YA, at least at the beginning of it, as we follow young adults coming into power at a critical stage in the world. And finally, we have Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is one of his newer books. The book's tone and plot are heavily inspired by The Princess Bride, which is another debatably young adult novel and has a lot of fairy tale inspirations. Sanderson self-describes his books as being heroic. I find this description of his work interesting through a young adult lens. I think heroic can often be used to describe YA fantasy and science fiction, but maybe less so with more realistic YA books. But if you take a look at some of the other books we read this semester, I think that many of the actions of our main characters can be described that way. For example, the radical forgiveness you see in the 57 bus is something I would personally describe that way, or the journey Raquel goes on in her queer discovery. Many of the small and powerful moments of all these books feel like triumphs of the self, and I genuinely can't think of anything more heroic than that. And self-discovery is at the heart of all of Sanderson's YA novels. Science fiction and fantasy has the luxury of literally making their characters heroes in a very tangible sense. But in Sanderson's work, these outward expressions of heroics is always reflective of the internal battle each of our characters is facing. As an author, I think that Brandon Sanderson is an excellent example of someone that is able to take grand ideas and make them simple. A young girl trying to make her dad proud, a young boy learning to love himself. But I also think it's important to note that Sanderson is also always trying to help others become better writers themselves. As I mentioned above, Sanderson has always made time to teach creative writing to help up-and-coming authors. Additionally, he has released that course for free on YouTube for anyone at home to take, which is what you have been seeing in the background for this video. He obviously cares about the craft and the community, and I don't think you could really ask for much else from an author.